Hello, welcome to the instructions for this lovely little willow project. On opening your kit, first thing you need to do is to soak your willow, and you might need a few extra tools to supplement the making of your project. First, we're going to put the willow rods, the uprights, into the template, putting the butt end in. So this is the butt end going into the template, like so. I use a mug under the template to give me approximately 3 to 4 inches depth. Tie the tops of the uprights together just to stop them moving around. This helps when you're weaving around the base of the uprights. We're going to start by adding the tips of 3 rods between any one of the upright to start with, and then the second tip goes in, and then the third tip, using in this case my left finger to hold the 3 tips down. It's a little bit fiddly, and the idea is you pick the furthest left hand rod, and we go in front of 2 rods and come out between the 3rd and the 4th rod. So I'm picking the furthest left, round the front of 2, behind the 3, and pulling it out between 3 and 4, and then pushing it flat. Then we find that we've got another left hand rod that comes between the 2 uprights and out between the 3rd and 4th rod, and lay it flat. And each time we know that we see a new left hand rod, we always pick from the left hand, in front of 2 rods, behind the 3rd, and out between the 3rd and the 4th, and push it. So now that the 3 rods are set in place, we're going to continue the weave, always choosing the furthest left hand rod, in front of 2, behind 3, and out between 3 and 4. Here's another left hand rod going in front of 2 and between out of 3 and 4. And again, another left hand rod in front of 1 upright, 2 uprights, behind the 3rd upright, and out between the gap in 3 and 4. And we continue this process all the way around until we run out of length of the weaving rods. As we come to the end of our rods, we'll now need to extend these so we can continue going around the project. So we need to weave them till there's about 2 or 3 inches remaining, so we can see where we're going to align the next rods to extend it. So now we're going to go through the process of extending. So we put a butt to butt, and we pull out with our left thumb, push the butt underneath inside that gap, and then what we do, we weave it in just as if it was a normal rod, in front of 2, behind 1. Now we take the next butt, again pulling the second weaver over, and place the rod in the gap and weave it in again, in front of 2, behind the third and out of the fourth. So it feels like we've just extended it. If you could imagine gluing them to each other, that's kind of typically what we would be looking at. So this is the third weaver going in front of two, behind the third and out. If you bend any of the uprights, just push them back in. And now we've got three ready to continue weaving again. And we just continue to weave all the way around until the rods run out. And then if we end with tips, we join tip to tip. And if we end with butts, we join butt to butt. And this is just a speeded up version, going round and round the basket until we get to the desired depth of wall. In this case, we're looking around about a depth of 3 to 4 inches, enough that we can hold a fat ball inside the basket. As we come to the end of the weaving and we've got an adequate depth of sidewall, I personally like to finish by having the end of the rods finish inside of the basket, but this is just personal preference. You can keep them on the outside if you wish. I've coloured these tips black just to make it visually easier to follow. So here you'll see I'm just putting the last weaves round in the whale weave, and as we run out I try to keep them on the inside wall of the basket. This is the last one going in, with all three on the inside wall of the basket rather than the outside. Now we remove the top knot of the uprights and open them out a little bit. And now we're going to start the process of laying the uprights flat in the shape of similar to a bicycle wheel spokes. So in order to do this, we pick any one of the uprights and we count 4 along from in an anti-clockwise direction. Here I'm just indicating the number 1 that I've chosen with a little bit of string. You could use a peg or a piece of string. We count this as number 1, 2, 3, 4, and between 4 and 5 we're going to lay and kink this down horizontally between 4 and 5 and then hold it down with my right hand. And now we've got another new number 1, 2, 3, 4, and between 4 and 5 we're going to kink it down and lay it down between gaps 4 and 5 of the upright. Now we've got a new upright. We're going to count again 4 and 5 and come out between 4 and 5, and as you notice they'll start crossing over each other as we work around the basket. As we finish laying the uprights down, when we get to the last few rods, you'll notice that there is no upright. So we have to imagine the upright is still there and continue to count it as if the upright was still in position. So here you can see me laying one down between one of the uprights, but then the other upright isn't there. But we put it there as if it was still in the upright position. We count in now the next one, 4. Between 4 and 5 you see that both of them are kinked there, but we now got to put it between that space, so we come round and up and under through the gap between 4 and 5 this time. So now we have to sort of lie it underneath the basket, carefully try not to kink it too much and make too many kinks in the uprights as we push it through. And now we can see that we're between that gap 4 and 5. So now we pick the remaining 3 uprights. So the left hand one, we count 1, 2. There's the 3rd and the 4th, and the 4th and 5th we can see are lying flat, but there's no rod lying through it, and this is the one we need to put through. So we bring it round and put the tip under and through the gap, and then pull it through. We have to do the same again on the other side of the basket when we get to that point. And again, there's a recording of this further on in the video from a slightly different angle, and again it might give you a good idea watching it from a different perspective. Here are the remaining 2 uprights left to be laid flat. Still counting along and aiming between upright 4 and 5. We notice we've got rods laying flat between nearly all of the gaps now, with just the remaining 2. So taking the furthest left, easing the willow slightly, breaking some of the structure inside by giving it a little bit of attention, and hopefully avoiding any kinks, pushing it between 4 and 5 through the gap and out. And our final upright, counting 4 uprights, and then it's going to go under all of the uprights and out through gap 4 and 5, just where my finger's indicating. Ease it through carefully, and there we have all of the uprights now laying flat, similar to the spokes in a bicycle wheel. And this is what it looks like from the top looking down. So now we are going to remove the cup and take off the template, just easing it down, pushing it down slowly, working it around until it comes free, and then just move that to one side, and you could use that again in the future if you wanted to continue making more of these baskets. Compress the wall down, making it nice and neat, and then take off all of the remaining uprights as close to the top of the wall as you can, like so. Now what we're going to do is a process called sliping. So you could take a Stanley knife or a sharp kitchen knife, and basically within around about 1 to 2 inches we're sliping the piece of butt end into a point. So we take one cut and then one either side to make it to a point. Then in this case we're going to put it to the right hand side of one of the uprights that we just snipped off and push it in quite far down into the basket, and then slip 16 rods in total all the way around the basket. Again, pushing it to the right hand side of the previous upright that we cut off. Once we have sliped all 16 rods and placed them alongside the uprights that we'd cut off, we're now ready again to continue the same process as before, laying down the uprights, counting 4 uprights and then laying it down between upright 4 and 5. Here we are again at the end of the laying down process. We notice this rod here doesn't have a 5th rod upright, but we need to imagine it's still there. And then this rod, we count in 4, between 4 and 5. We're going to put it through and under the rods that are already lying flat. We're going to give this rod a bit of attention by pulling and basically breaking up some of the fibres and the stiffness in the rod, enabling us to pull it through without kinking the upright rod. Easing it through as carefully as we can. And then taking the furthest rod, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, so it's got to come between the 4th and 5th through the gap. Again, giving that rod a bit of attention by easing it round, up and under through the gap and pulling it out, hopefully without kinking the rod. Now it's time to trim all the excess willow from your project. I normally go in the direction that the rod that leaves the basket, so if it's going over towards the left, if you angle your secateurs or snips so you get a nice chamfered edge, so visually it looks much nicer. Here I'm not being too close to the weave, as I'm trying to get rid of the majority of willow from the project first, and then I can get closer to the wall of the basket once most of the excess has been trimmed. So that's the one side of the uprights that we laid flat removed, and we do the other side again, following the same direction around, being quite close to the wall of the project. And here I'm using some snips just to demonstrate. They work very similar, just need a little bit more hand pressure to operate the snips. Obviously secateurs are the best option. Now we've got all of the bits of willow sticking out from the wale weaving that we did on the wall. Again, follow them in the same direction, getting close to the wall of the basket as you can. Nice clean snips. Very satisfying thing to do at the end of the basket. Some people like to snip stuff as they go but end up making a mistake. I think it's a nice thing to do at the end. And you can see your project come to life. Make sure you don't trim too much, and then you end up with a piece coming free because it's not been held in because you've snipped it too short. Having a good look around to see if there's any excess, or you can get it trimmed slightly closer. It looks to me like this is close to the end with very little now needs trimming off. Just time to remove that little bit of string, and you can squeeze and pull the basket into a round shape if it's slightly out of shape. Whilst it's still damp, it's quite easy to manoeuvre. Once it's dry, then it's pretty much set in its position. So finish off the basket using your cord from the kit, and you can now fill it with the items that you've chosen, either fat balls, flowers, or materials for bird's nest, and then ready to hang it up outside, and then stand back and admire your wonderful piece of work. Thank you very much.